Welcome to Tax File. I am your host, Laurie Bala Hassan, and today's episode is filled with rich insights you won't want to miss. We'll start with a roundup of the latest tax news, keeping you informed on the most relevant updates. In our Did You Know segment, we'll reveal some useful tax facts. You'll also hear from the public in our Vox Pop segment as we capture diverse opinions on pressing tax issues. Then we'll break down those perspectives further in the Knowledge Zone, offering clear explanations and deeper context. Our Professional Insight segment brings in experts' voices to help you make sense of complex tax topics. And to wrap it all up, What's on the Net features questions and comments from our social media platforms with our responses. It's going to be an enlightening journey. Let's get started. And now, the news. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, says Nigeria's new tax laws are not just about raising revenue, but about rebuilding trust between citizens and government. Hussein Ibrahim reports.
Speaking on the need for reform, Oyedele stated that the Nigerian's revenue profile is too weak to sustain development. According to him, even if waste and corruption were eliminated, current revenues will still be insufficient to fund infrastructure and public services. He noted that tax compliance levels in Nigeria remain among the lowest globally, with some jurisdictions operating below 5% compliance.
I knew our tax culture was very poor in Nigeria. But this reform just brought it into daylight. Do you know that most things that people have been fighting us as a result of this reform were not new, but they didn't know? Let me tell you, one of the latest was, and I'm doing these things on purpose. I know they will attack me, they abuse me, but I look at the bigger picture. It's an opportunity to raise the tax awareness of a nation. We must never miss that opportunity. When I said a couple of weeks ago that everyone must file returns, including employees, and I put the deadline for filing, they've been abusing me since then. Majority of them actually thought it was a new introduction. It has always been there. They just were not filing. Some of them did not know they were supposed to file. Filing compliance in Nigeria is one of the lowest in the world.
He emphasized that evasion and aggressive tax avoidance will become more costly, while regulation of tax agents will ensure greater professional accountability. However, he stressed that the real test lies in implementation, noting that consistency, fairness, and professionalism across all tax authorities will determine the reform's success.
So this reform was meant to be people-centered. It's about our people. That's the heart of the social contract. Improving fiscal governance, ensuring that we have strengthened revenue administration so we can raise revenue to fund our aspirations, and promoting a healthy and fair tax culture. Don't place excessive burden on people without capacity to bear those burdens.
According to Oyedele, success will not be measured by revenue alone, but by easier compliance, fewer disputes, and a more predictable and credible tax system.
The Nigeria Revenue Service is entering a new phase of reform, with leadership emphasizing workforce productivity, accountability, and technology adoption as critical to achieving its ambitious 2026 revenue targets. Ejura Etu Opanachi has the reports.
The Executive Director, People, Stakeholders and Communications, Obinna Ihedioha, announced that the service is reviewing career structures, harmonizing onboarding processes, and strengthening performance management systems to ensure merit-based promotion and rewards. He acknowledged internal challenges, including staff concerns about fairness in appraisals, and stressed that clearer communication and stronger stakeholder engagement will be key to sustaining performance. With only about 12,000 staff serving over 200 million Nigerians, he noted that productivity, upskilling, and strategic workforce planning are essential to meeting national revenue needs.
Focus. We focus on very key drivers, and we look at strategic workforce planning,
We looked at our talent acquisition and attraction selection processes. We're looking at our onboarding and dynamic deployment system, our overall target of 41 trillion in 2026. We cannot achieve that if we don't have a workforce that is vibrant. We cannot achieve that if we don't have a workforce that is committed. We cannot achieve that if we don't have a workforce that constantly learning, developing, and also relearning. And I think also it brings to point the central theme that we say, together we rise, together we prosper.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of Technology, Nta Akure, highlighted digitalization as a cornerstone for the reform agenda. Speaking at the 2026 NRS Leadership Retreat, he outlined plans to build a digital-first, data-driven, and secure revenue platform that enhances taxpayer experience, strengthens compliance, and improves operational efficiency.
Digital first means that for us in this room is that we prioritize everything that has to do in our operations. We prioritize anything that has to do with digital. In whatever job role or job function we are in, whatever department, division, or unit, in HR, in finance, in tax operations, we are thinking automation. We're thinking how to digitize the processes.
Together, the directors underscored that workforce discipline and digital innovation must work hand in hand by embedded accountability, communication, and technology adoption across the service.
Nigeria Revenue Service staff have taken a bold step to strengthen civic education with the launch of The Secret of the Good Land, a foundational tax educational book for basic learners. Written by two NRS staff members, Simeon Onyegbula and Nta Akure. The book aims to instill tax awareness and responsibility from early age. Saama Chido has the reports.
At the launch event, speakers emphasized that taxation is not just about levies or compliance, but about building a nation where resources are mobilized fairly and citizens understand their obligations. The book uses storytelling, illustration, and activities to introduce children to taxation in a simple and engaging way, aiming to raise a generation of tax-conscious citizens.
It is with immense gratitude and joy that I welcome you all to the official launch of our book, The Secret of the Good Land, a foundational tax education book.
When the land is good, you can be sure that the produce from that land is going to be good. So what Simeon and Anna has done is to bring the secret of the good land not to the surface, really, because you still need to read through the book for you to uncover those secrets.
The Secret of the Good Land is more than a book. It is a roadmap to a future where literacy fuels compliance, drives national prosperity.
Now, what do you get from this book? This book gives you reasons why taxation is important to mankind.
After each chapter, the book is designed in a very interesting way. It has activities, summaries, exercises, and word games. And I suspect that is what, knowing my son, that age, the early teenage, yes, those are the things that attract them, their games. And I'd like to encourage the authors, take this online.
Approved by the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, the book is now set for use in schools nationwide, filling a critical gap in civic education. Authors Simeon Onyegbula and Nta Akure describe the publication as a strategic intervention designed to decentralize awareness and embed tax consciousness at the grassroots.
This book was born out of a conviction that taxation is not merely about numbers, levies, or compliance. It's about building a good land, a nation where resources are mobilized fairly, where citizens understand their obligations, and where governments are empowered to deliver prosperity.
What is tax and how does it work? Asked Gambo. I know everyone who makes money pays tax here, but I cannot explain how it works. How
However, I know a man who can teach much about tax. We call him Mr. Taxman. Come, let me take you to meet him, said the principal.
We all know that taxation is the bedrock of every nation revenue. And the way this book is crafted is to make it catch them young. By catch them young means that you begin at the elementary and basic levels to teach people the principle and basic rule of taxation. And once that is done, it's going to dovetail into too many people being aware of what taxation is all about.
And that's a wrap on the news. Let's join Mariam on the Vox Pop segment.
Hello and welcome to the segment. My name is Mariam Julde Adura, and today we will be enlightening you about the penalties or the consequences of failing to respond to requests, demands, and notices under the new tax law. Come.
According to the new tax law, precisely the Nigerian Tax Act Administration 2025, Section 108, subsection 1, which says that you are expected to pay your tax, and failure to respond to the notice, you pay 100,000 for the first day and then 10,000 for the subsequent days.
The Section 108, subsection 1 of Nigeria Tax Law 2025 states that if a company is default to do all these things, the penalty is for, and the first month of default, you'll be charged 100,000 naira, while the subsequent month, 10,000 naira on the daily basis.
Failure to respond to queries from the tax office warrants 100,000 penalty in the first day of default and 10,000 subsequently, every subsequent day.
Under the new tax, which is the Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, failure to attend to demands, requests, and notices under Section 108, subsection 1, is 100,000 naira for the first day of default, and subsequent days 10,000.
The law has been passed last year, and it has taken effect from January 2026. 100,000 in the first days that the failure occur, while subsequent days is 10,000 naira.
Did you know if a taxpayer does not comply with the requirements of a notice or fails to attend or answer questions in response to a notice or summon, the law imposes an initial penalty of 100,000 for the first day of default? For more information, please visit www.nrs.gov.ng.
Ashu Abe takes us on the Knowledge Zone.
Hello and welcome to Knowledge Zone, where we dive deeper into interesting conversations had on the streets. I remain your host, Ashu Abe. On today's episode, we'll be talking about what the penalty is for failing to respond to tax notices, requests, or demands under the new tax law. Under the Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, which guides compliance, failing to respond to tax notices, requests, or demands attracts escalating administrative penalties. If a taxpayer does not comply with the requirements of a notice or fails to attend or answer questions in response to a notice or summons, the law imposes an initial penalty of 100,000 naira for the first day of default and 10,000 naira for each subsequent day that the non-compliance continues. Similarly, if a person fails or refuses to supply requested information, documents, or records within the time specified, they face an initial penalty of 200,000 and 10,000 for each additional day of default. For refusal to comply with prescribed obligations to submit particular tax information, such as those related to legal arrangements or guidelines issued by the tax authority, the first day penalty is 1 million. Again, with a continuing daily penalty of 10,000 naira while failure persists. These penalties are administrative and accrue daily until the taxpayer complies with the notice or request. The escalating nature of these fines is intended to encourage prompt cooperation with tax authorities and ensure efficient tax administration. In more serious cases or where offenses under this section are prosecuted, additional criminal charges, including fines and imprisonment, may be imposed under other provisions of the Act. Over to you, Lore.
And now to our professional insight segment.
Okay, yeah. Adeyemi Ayokoya is my name. I'm a directorate staff of the newly rebranded and I must say, aptly named Nigeria Revenue Service. I presently head Abuja Medium Taxpayers Audit with the responsibility to ensure that taxpayers within the medium taxpayers segment, those with turnover thresholds of between 1 billion naira and 5 billion naira, duly comply with the extant tax laws. Yeah. The mandate of the service is to assess, collect, and account for taxes due to the Federation. And that's our core mandate. So we go by that. For audits, we are engaged in the compliance measures to ensure that taxpayers within our segment pay their objective and fair share of taxes due to the Federation. So we go after taxpayers after risk profiling them for potential infractions in the tax laws. So we go after them and then we usually get results by raising additional assessments from our work. Now, in the course of that, we also educate taxpayers about the benefits of compliance voluntarily. Educating them about the merits of not paying their taxes as at when due, which could lead to them being denied their tax clearance certificates. And if they are being denied, that's time lag and they would not be able to bid for contracts or some other endeavors that a tax clearance certificate is required. Also, there could be litigation against them and they could be embarrassed with publications in the media. Okay, so as an office, we ensure that the taxpayers have a very good experience whenever they visit us, say for reconciliation meetings and what have you. We ensure that they are promptly attended to. And whenever we receive correspondences from them, we treat them as soon as possible and we respond to their letters and other correspondences as soon as possible. So with that, we also encourage them, if it's not convenient for them, to come over to the office to send the correspondences via email or some other convenient means. One of the things that the service is also doing is the e-invoicing project. The Nigerian Tax Act, section number 23 of it, empowers the service to deploy technology to strengthen tax administration and in order to increase revenue due to the Federation. Also, Section 158 of the Nigerian Tax Act mandates taxpayers to implement technology deployed by the service in their businesses. Our core KPI is collection. So last year, we achieved 80% of our cash collection target, which was unprecedented for Abuja MTA. And if we are to include the withholding tax credits that was raised due to our audit exercise, the office achieved circa 160% of its targets. For the taxpayers, they complain that the economy is not as vibrant as it should be, and but we explain to them, and then they see reasons that the fiscal reforms that are taking place is actually yielding results. They also complain, especially with Abuja MTA, that a lot of them have not been paid their due sums. In any case, majority of them are government contractors.
Over now to Swateku for what's on the net.
Good day and welcome to What's on the Net. My name is Joyce Swateku. AtSmart is asking, paying taxes is not a new practice in Nigeria. In fact, the average Nigerian pays taxes directly or indirectly to the government. However, many Nigerians do not see the benefit of the taxes they pay. It would be helpful to highlight the areas where tax revenues has positively impacted the average Nigerian. AtSmart, those tax payments actually do make a difference. They help build our roads, fund schools and hospitals, and support programs that reach ordinary people. Every tax we pay, in one way or another, helps keep the country running and makes life a bit better for all of us. Umar is asking, is there any difference between the tin gotten from state and that of the federal? Well, Nigeria now operates a unified tax identification number, TIN, used by both federal and state tax authorities. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, issues TINs for federal taxes like company income tax, VAT, and withholding tax. Meanwhile, state boards of internal revenue handles taxes such as personal income tax and other state levies. Today, a single 12-digit TIN is recognized nationwide through the Joint Tax Board, removing the need for separate federal and state numbers. However, some states like Lagos still require businesses to complete additional registration for their local taxes. Over to you, Laurie.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Tax File. I hope you're walking away with fresh insights and a clearer understanding of tax matters that affects you. But remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Connect with us on social media. We are always ready to hear your thoughts. Until next time, I am Laurie Bala Hassan. Stay informed, stay compliant, and keep watching Tax File.